This is the key to a normal family hatchback, and this is the key to the new BMW 5 Series. Now this key does all the basics perfectly fine, but this key I'm able to check out how much range, how much fuel there is in the car. I can remotely set the climate control, and I can even park the car from the key without even being inside the car. This key just sums up what the BMW 5 Series is all about. It's absolutely bursting with technology. Now, as standard, the BMW 5 Series comes with TFT dials, and that's an option on most Jaguar XF models, for instance. There's ambient lighting, and all models come with BMW's professional infotainment system with sat-nav, and look, it's even saying hello to me. Isn't that lovely? Now, it's all controlled as per usual by BMW's iDrive controller, and it just works so intuitively thanks to these shortcut buttons and this rotary knob. Now, quality in here is absolutely exemplary. There's no nasty plastics in here whatsoever. Cubby wise, well, there's plenty of them. We've got a couple of cup holders down here with wireless phone charging. Under here we've got another place with another USB charging port. The glove box is large enough for a 1.5 litre bottle of water, and so are the door bins. Overall, it feels very much like a Mini 7 Series in here. Now, most BMW 5 Series in the past have felt like upscaled 3 Series, but this one feels like a mini limo. The 5 Series is full of toys too. As standard, there's cruise control with a braking function, LED headlights, that TFT display, and BMW's professional infotainment system with sat-nav, front and rear parking sensors, and heated front seats. Now, you may only get the same amount of space back here as you do in a Jaguar XF or Mercedes E-Class, but there's no denying the fact that it's absolutely massive back here. Now, if I sit upright, you'll see that I've got tons and tons of knee room, and headroom is pretty good too. I'm just over 5'10", and I've got a decent amount of space. Now, you can fit 3 people at a push. The middle person isn't going to feel too comfortable though, because this seat is quite high, but shoulder room is still pretty good. Now, cubby wise, well, we've got these little airline sort of cubbies here, and the door bins easily fit a 1.5 litre bottle of water. They seem to be multiplying in this car. Now, in the armrest, we've got a couple of cup holders there, and if you specify this car with folding rear seats, the middle bit can fold down and acts as a very good ski hatch should you so wish. Now, for children, we've got Isofix points in both seats, and they're very easily accessible, and the doors open really very wide, which is great when you're loading those child seats in. Now, in raw numbers, the BMW 5 Series has a slightly smaller boot than the Jaguar XF and the Mercedes E-Class, but those are just raw numbers, because when you look at the amount of boot room you've got on offer, it is pretty big. Now, the opening is wide, the loading space is nice and square, and if I grab the Carbuyer suitcase, you'll see that there's not that much of a drop down into the boot floor, which is great. Now push that all the way to the front, and you can see there's a huge amount of space still on offer. Now, there isn't any underfloor storage, unfortunately, but there are a couple of cubbies either side, and if you spend extra, you can have folding rear seats, and when you fold those down, you've got some extra useful boot room. The petrol engine range kicks off with the 530i, which gets a 252 bhp 2-litre 4-cylinder, while the 540i gets a smooth 335 bhp 3-litre straight 6. There's also a 530e plug-in hybrid that uses the 2-litre petrol engine and an electric motor that gives a claimed electric range of 31 miles. Now, whilst all those petrols sound lovely and exciting, the reality is you're probably going to want a diesel, and more likely as not, the 520d with its 2-litre 4-cylinder diesel and 187 brake horsepower. Why? Well, it delivers more than enough power, it's a really strong engine, and it's really very refined. It's a lot quieter in here, and you feel as though you're a lot more insulated than you are in the Jaguar XF 2-litre diesel, for example. Now you can spend a little bit more and have X-Drive all-wheel drive like we've got here, or a little bit more and have a 3-litre 6-cylinder diesel. Now naturally the power delivery is stronger, smoother, but there's also a downfall in terms of fuel economy. It's just a little bit less fuel efficient.
In general, the 5 Series rides very well indeed and soaks up bumps and potholes, but M Sport cars get slightly stiffened suspension, so our recommendation is to go for the variable damper control that costs a reasonable £985.
Now the comfortable ride goes in tandem with this 8-speed automatic gearbox. Now it's a little bit different in the new 5 Series. Now we first saw it in the Rolls-Royce Wraith, and what it is the gearbox uses the data from the sat-nav, so the car knows what corner is coming up, it knows what speed you're doing, and it will set the automatic gearbox up appropriately. So it knows that this particular corner I'm probably going to want 4th gear, and it's got 4th gear ready and waiting for me. It just means that the gear changes are a lot smoother than they would be in a normal auto. But it's not just about comfort. The 5 Series has always been the best in class for handling. Now this car is really very agile. The steering is lovely and direct, but if I'm being really picky, the steering isn't quite as crisp or as quick as you find in the Jaguar XF. In actual fact, I think the Jag has the BMW beaten in the handling department. Visibility isn't brilliant on this car. Out the back it isn't particularly good, and here it's really quite bad. The wing mirror and the pillar are really quite fat. Also, you've got to be aware of the options list. Now most cars come as standard with an awful lot of equipment, but if you bury yourself in the options list it can become quite expensive. Apple CarPlay, for instance, is a £235 option.
Of course, it's not just Apple CarPlay, but the first car in the world to have wireless CarPlay. It's still an awful lot of money though.
Now one other thing I wouldn't bother going for is the key, which I began the film with. Not only does it cost £195, but I don't think it adds anything to the whole ownership experience. The screen is very laggy. The vast majority of information you can get on your smartphone via the BMW app is big and it's heavy, and you constantly have to charge it up. There's a little charging cable that comes with the car, and you've got to remember to actually charge it up virtually every single time you get in the car. It's all just a little bit too much of a gimmick. Oh, and talking of gimmicks is the gesture control. Now I've just waggled my finger around, just gesticulating to you, and I've managed to turn up BBC Radio 4. Let's just turn that off. So gesture control works just like that. I'm able to do a few gestures with my fingers, and more often than not it's laggy, it doesn't respond when you want it to, and you start to think that it's fine in the 5 minutes you play around with it when you're on the dealership test drive, but once you actually start living with it, it's a bit too much of a gimmick and it's a bit of a waste of £160.
This is a seriously impressive car, right from the quality of the materials, the refinement, and how there's a really lovely balance between fun and comfort. You see, it's not as cosseting as the Mercedes E-Class, and nor is the 5 Series quite as fun as the Jaguar XF. It's just a nice balance between the two. If you've enjoyed this review, please like it and share it. You can watch a review of the Mercedes E-Class at the top and our Executive Cars playlist. And please subscribe to our channel by pressing our logo.